a howling panel with the two of you, but
I'm sure I can handle it.
Well, you have like hundreds of credits, but can we sort of start with just your background is interesting. You came from the Midwest, from Kansas City. You were a dancer, and if you could talk a little bit just how you first got into acting, it's interesting.
Of all the questions.
You know what? We're going to start at the beginning.
Okay.
I was a girl.
To make a long story really short, my mother was a local actress in Kansas City. And really, she's the reason I became an actress. And so she would do all the religious plays at our church. I started out as baby Jesus and ended up as a Virgin Mary. Neither one of which I get close to in my real life. She would produce and direct them, and I would watch her do these monologues. We call them monologues now. They were readings, 30 and 40-minute readings, and I would watch people in the audience, grown men, start bawling their eyes out, and I remember being like 7 or 8 years old going, I want to do this. I want to move people like my mommy does. And that's really why I became an actress. But I also think you're just kind of born to do it. I do. I mean, my daughter, who follows Gabrielle Stone? Anybody? Oh, great. You should. She's a really good actress. And, you know, I have a sonogram of her going like this, and and like me, she started out as a dancer and became an actress, and I think it's that creative thing is just somehow passed down.
In your blood, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Actually, I think people are kind of driven to do it because my whole family's a bunch of hams and no one went out to do anything. And, but sometimes I think, you get it in your blood, you want to do it. Like, hey, I'm going to do this. Is that for you? Like, I think I'm going to do it. Or did you just say, holy shit, I'm doing it?
Well, I did it in high school, but my mom, we were really, really poor when I was growing up. So she would trade her secretarial services and her acting services to get me dance lessons and what they called elocution lessons, which was how to pronounce words correctly, right? And so I started performing around Kansas City when I was very young and dancing. And what was your question?
Nothing. It's just like, instead I said some people are driven and some people fall into it and some people just keep,
I just loved it. It just was like who I was, math and science not so much. And so I started at a really young age, and it was just kind of like second nature to me, and I'd never been out of Kansas. I got a teaching degree, taught high school, never been out of Kansas in my life, and moved to New York City after writing a very cheesy letter to Hal Prince, who was the top producer on Broadway. So the day I landed in New York City, I sent everything that belonged to me in a cab and said, hi, can you take it to this address? And it got there, and I went directly to Rockefeller Center and auditioned for a little night music and got down to the last 5 girls after the acting and the dancing, and then they said, okay, well, Mr. Prince would like you to sing now. And I went, well, I didn't know I had to sing. And they said, well, dear, it is a musical. So I sang Happy Birthday. And the company had said, what key? And I went, somewhere in the middle. For Hal Prince. Didn't get the part, but man, I knew where to go study acting. I knew where to go for singing lessons. I had it all lined up my first day before I ever got to my apartment.
Yeah, but that's great because you had a goal. You set a goal for yourself.
Yeah, you have to.
And you started, well, I wouldn't say you got lucky, but you got roles young. You had a little role in Stepford Wives, which was a big movie. And then
I got that role because I was running out of money, so I was sitting in the outside office waiting to interview for a receptionist job. And Brian, the director, comes out and he walks by me, and he comes out and he says, "Are you an actress?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "You want to be in a movie?" And I went, "Yeah." I mean, I thought, does it get easier than this? Well, if you've seen Stepford Wives, if you blink, you miss me.
But it still was a big movie and you were on the street.
It was, and I learned a lot.
And then from there, as far as features go, you went from there to Hills Have Eyes, which was a powerful movie in a bigger role. And
well, it was also like, yeah, you jumped right into like a pretty big starring role with a whole lot of screen time with The Hills Have Eyes.
exactly,
Yeah, but nobody was really a star.
it was
you know?
still it was a low budget movie and a horror film, but it was a very popular film.
Well,
in the drive-in,
it was, and there was a lot of hype surrounding it because Last House on the Left had gotten a lot of press for making so much money on the drive-in circuit.
Right.
Were you aware of the success of Last House on the Left before you met
No.
Wes Craven?
No. Had it come out already?
Oh yeah, that's how Hills Have Eyes was financed.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it was a successor to that. But that movie went on to be, it was huge.
I
It
mean,
was
who
a
would,
giant.
you know, you never, E.T., none of them, you, as an actor or anybody involved in them, you don't sit there and go, oh, this is going to be a really huge mega hit. You never do that. You go in and, like E.T., we went, wow, this is an awesome script. There's something special
it's a little
about the
original,
script.
and yeah,
You know, but nobody ever sits there thinking about making a blockbuster. You just go in to do the best job you can and be as truthful as you can. And then when it comes out, there's so much out of your control. You know, you've seen great movies that don't make it, and horrible movies that do. You know, and it depends so much on how it's marketed and the time that it comes out. Like The Frighteners. The Frighteners should have been a much bigger film.
it was actually a very good film. It was
It's a
enjoyable.
great film. But it came out, the story behind it is, it was supposed to come out at Halloween. And it would have done great at Halloween. But some big blockbuster wasn't finished, so Universal threw it in with all the summer blockbusters, and it really got lost.
Yeah, and it really was a fun film. And I have to admit, it's like that Peter Jackson film that nobody talks about. No one
Which
remembers.
one? His early weird ones?
No, everybody in this room remembers his early
Hence
gore
saying
film.
that The Frighteners is the one.
Frighteners is the
Oh,
one
yeah.
that it just got misplaced, and
Yeah, it
people
did.
don't. It's a film you should watch if you've never seen it. I mean, it
Yeah, I
really
had a
is
lot of
fun.
fun killing everybody.
Yeah, and it had a great cast. You know, like as far as like even Ghost, John Astin. It was just fun.
Jeffrey Combs,
Yeah.
brilliant in it. He is brilliant in it.
Talking about like working with people like early in your career, we just watched The Howling, and it had people like John Carradine, Kevin McCarthy, Kenny Toby, Slim Pickens. Were you aware of these people? And
Oh, sure.
you know, because like I know Joe Dante put him in there because he was a fan of the horror films and stuff they did, but you know they were very good actors too. So sometimes that's a little intimidating. Walking into and going, holy mackerel! There's a room full of guys that are new
You
forever.
know, but the real established stars never make you feel like that. It's the little punts that think they're great. I'm serious. The big guys don't need to make anybody feel that way. So we would all sit around the bonfire and stuff during the Halloween. And John Carradine and Slim, they would regale us with stories. You know, like for hours while we were shooting.
Well, one of the biggest
my
stars you
gosh.
worked with kind of early on would have been Bo Derek, because 10 was...
Bo wasn't a star then.
well, by the time the movie came out...
Bo was
she
nobody then.
John Derek marketed with her. But, what was that set like?
Oh, well, I loved working for Blake Edwards. He's one of my favorite directors. And boy, nobody Nobody gets away with anything on Blake's set
Yeah,
like
he has a
that.
style of all his own too. He has
Well,
a way of.
And he did everything. He's probably the most prolific writer, director, producer ever.
Well, I think
Writer,
him
producer,
just for the
director.
Pink Panther series. So.
Well, and then he did Days of Wine and Roses.
Sure.
You know, he just did everything. But man, he ruled that set. I remember the sound engineer, the sound man, came up to me and he said, and Blake was walking by. He said, Dee, can you speak up a little bit? It's kind of hard. And Blake turned around. Oh, there's children in there. Fill in the blanks. And Blake turned around and said, you, don't you ever talk to my actress again. Don't ever give her direction. Don't ever tell her she has to speak up. It's your job to get it. And I get on from Kansas, right? It's my first really big film with a major director. And he comes up to me the first day, and I'm sitting on the bed. Nobody says anything till Blake, you know. And he comes up and he sits down and he says, so, Dee, how do you feel about doing this nude? Well, I didn't fall over in a dead faint, but my heart went whoop up into my throat. Kansas, right? I'm just not very long from Kansas.
Midwestern.
And I said, Mr. Edwards, I feel like it's very wrong for the part. You know, I mean, here I am and he's having trouble getting it up. And I don't think I would flaunt everything in front of him. And, you know, everybody else in the picture is nude. And truthfully, I make my living doing commercials right now. If you want to guarantee me 2 more pictures, I'll try. And he looked at me and he went, okay, just thought I'd check, and walked off. Because he knew it would throw me off just enough, and then like 2 seconds later we hear, okay, roll it. And I'm like, you know,
That's funny.
he was great. He was just great. I loved him.
Well, then you go back to like The Howling again, and Joe Dante directed that, who was obviously a fan of all this stuff growing up, and you know, and how was he to work with?
Oh, Joe.
Or was he just that fan on the set too?
Oh no, Joe. You've seen his stuff, you know. He's
Well, he started cutting, you know, trailers for Corman and wrote comedies, and he actually wrote the first screenplay for Rock and Roll High School.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, P.J. Souls and Day Young are here this weekend, and he wrote the first script, and so all of it's based off of Joe's first script, I think.
Well, Joe and I are still friends, and he's so much fun. And he gives you a lot of leeway and a lot of freedom on the set. And, you know, The Howling would have been a much lesser film without Joe Dante and all of his things with all the characters that he brought back. And, you know, all the cartoons and stuff that they played on the TV, Joe paid for all those himself because the studio wouldn't call for it.
Well, that's funny. He also wrote, like, he would write movie reviews, so he was kind of a critic. So when he wrote a successful movie, other critics went, you know, screw you. You did. Why did you? And he always wrote stuff he liked. He was like Fred Decker, the guy who wrote Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps. All of his movies are very fun, but they're always based on stuff he grew up and enjoyed, and I think that's why Joe always got behind all of his projects.
Yeah, Joe Dante is one of the few. It's so obnoxious in a lot of genre movies where you have cameos from celebrities and things named after, but he does that so well in The Howling.
Well,
and
he works it in.
He works it in a way where it's cool, but it's like not overbearing.
And there's guys doing it now, which is, I think it's great. Quentin Tarantino does it, Rob Zombie does it, and I think it's great because a lot of these people, they're not just friends and people I know, but it's just nice to see people working in something new fans see them in.
I just finished 3 from Hell, by the way.
Yeah. There's a lot of people here this weekend with 3 from Hell.
You are gonna love it.
And Dwayne Whitaker's in it, but he's not on the IMDb. Dee Wallace is in it. Austin Stoker's in it. I mean, like, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people here this weekend. And, Well, of course they're in it, but yeah, it's just
Sid?
funny.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Sid and Mosley
Yeah.
have to be in it.
Yeah, it'd be 2 from hell without Sid. Now, all right. Well, I'll change the subject a little bit and move on to.
Will you talk about one more thing about The Howling?
Absolutely.
So one of the many cool things about The Howling is you're in the peak of like the teen slasher era, and the characters in The Howling are adults, and it has a very different sensibility, and it's also sort of making fun of pop psychology and the self-help movement, and it's also based off of a novel. Gary Bradner was, like Stephen King, very prolific, wrote lots and lots of novels, but Joe Dante was really trying to separate the leads and the main characters from the teenagers that you would see in horror movies, mainly in the late 70s, early 80s. I know this is long-winded, but I'm getting there. So, coming from Kansas and coming from the Midwest, you ended up playing, and this is one of the early movies where you play kind of middle American, sort of like mom-type character. I know she's supposed to be from LA, but you're sort of playing like the every woman. Do you think you were able to draw on that sort of like down-home Kansas people who you grew up with in portraying these characters?
What do you mean draw from them? I am them. Well, sure. I think if there's anything that's made me as prolific an actress as I am, it's that combination of strength and vulnerability. And also the willingness to really look like poop on screen.
But it's true. Yeah, beat up, haggard, dragged through the dirt. Well, yeah.
The hot mom look, but the mom look.
Dee Wallace.
Good save.
It's not a save, it's what everybody knows.
I mean, I don't think I've ever looked worse than I look in 3 from Hell. Ever. But I enjoy doing the character stuff. I really like the arcs and the emotions and stuff of the characters.
It's a challenge, a little bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. But my mom was an incredibly strong mother. And so it wasn't a huge stretch for me to understand people like Mary and Donna Trenton from Cujo. Because she was a single mom for a lot of my life. She ran the family. She worked, 12, 14-hour days and raised 3 kids.
Sure.
I know those characters.
Yeah, well, and you did like a period of time where I call mom roles. One, and whether it was a horror film, a sci-fi film, it was just a mom role, and you have to draw on somebody. Your mom would. I thought it was funny. I introduced you to my mother earlier. She goes, "Why do I know her?" I'm like, "From every mom role you've ever seen." And I mentioned films, and then I hope it don't make you blush. My mom went, "She's too young to be in those films."
I love her. I love her. I knew I loved her.
Yeah. So and she goes, "Really? That's her?" And I was like, "Yes." She just and I told her the truth. I said, "You were just a teenager when you started." and of course, my mom went, "Oh, well, that explains why she was, young mom."
I love her.
So,
It's the sweetest.
my mom will watch anything on cable, so I'm like, "Mom, you've seen E.T., you've seen Cujo, you've seen." She was like, "Oh my God, that's right." That is because I get that from my mother and my father-in-law up front. They're like, "Why do I know these people? They were in good movies too." I run a B-movie show, and I'm like, "But they were in good movies too." I'm always whispering that to my mother and my father-in-law up front, so I think it's funny. I'm sorry, that was a segue. But my mom really did say that earlier. So we talked about Cujo. We just mentioned it. And I'm not a real fan of Stephen King movies. Why? Because lots of them suck. But Cujo...
He even says that.
Cujo was a good one. We showed Carrie earlier, which might still be my favorite. Which might still be my favorite. And, okay, Cujo's my new favorite.
Cujo's one that's better than the book.
But we were talking about a tough shoot. That one had to be a tough shoot, not just because you had to look like you, but because of all the there was puppets and this, and you had to relax.
Okay. Okay, actually,
People in
there were
suits.
13 dogs that played Cujo.
And it's
They
hard
were
to
all-
react to all that, you know, when
You
it's
think?
different scenes. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I'm not an actor.
They
but
were
I
all
would-
trained to go after toys. We had to tie their tails down because they were wagging their tails. So, yeah. So, there was a stuntman. If you come to my table, you'll see a very funny picture of the stuntman and the director and I dancing. He didn't do very many shots in the movie. The real dogs did almost everything, including going through. We couldn't get any of the dogs to go through the window at the end. So we tried the stunt guy. It looked stupid. We tried, there was a black lab, I think, and we put him in this dog suit. Looked stupid. So finally they got one dog that would go, and they brought in 3 cameras so they could shoot it in slow motion. And Carl Miller, our brilliant trainer, said you get one shot. Don't ask me for another one. One shot. And it was worth everything we went through to get that slow motion of that dog coming through there. But yeah, 13 dogs, 13 St. Bernards trained within an inch of their lives, you know. But yeah, it was the hardest thing. They treated me for exhaustion for 3 weeks after I finished that. My adrenals are still blown. I still got to be on adrenal stuff.
The movie holds up well, though. So
Yeah,
I mean, like when you look at it back as an accomplishment as an actor, it's
Thank you.
nice to say, "Hey, man, it holds up well." So.
Yeah, it's my favorite film. I just feel like I went as far as I could go, as truthfully as I could go there, you know. So I'm glad you.
I had to ask a Cujo question. Why not? Art, you got something?
I do. So
We
this is more like how did you feel at the time? But so after E.T. comes out, and then the years following, the media was so brutal on poor Drew Barrymore until things turned around for her. How did you feel during that time period, seeing her being so beat up on?
Okay, but being honest, she was doing a few things that opened her wide up to be, you know, you don't get up on David Letterman's desk or whoever the heck it was and raise your shirt, you know. And would any of us want to grow up during those years in front of the media? I don't know, I was from Kansas. I was pretty straight, so they probably would have found
A lot of child actors suffered, though, and it's
Yeah.
nice to see she overcame all that.
Yeah, I mean, but we accept that when we get into this industry. That's part of it, is we open ourselves to scrutiny, right? In the press. So, I don't know, I've never had problems with fans attacking me or media trying to shed dirt about. I've never experienced any of that. And in Drew's defense, she really did not have, as far as my witnessing went, she didn't have a lot of supervision. She didn't have a lot of people saying, honey, you shouldn't be doing this, you know, or she didn't have a lot of guidance from her family. And if we don't have guidance when we're young, we don't know what to do and what not to do. So I think there's a lot of sides that comes in on that
True.
question.
Yeah, you were, like you said, I grew up the same way. Both my parents were poor, and we had a lot of guidance. I'm very proud of everything I've ever accomplished. And I hope my parents were too.
Yeah.
You know? But I always did it for me. My dad always told me, you shouldn't do that, you can't do that, you're going to fail at that. My mom always said, just do it. So, I did it for me. But I agree that when you don't have somebody there telling you anything, then you tend to stray off the path. And it's nice to see she's very successful now, and
Yeah.
she cleaned up early, and You know, and then, you know, in that regard too, like you've done so many films that fans enjoy, and you do a lot of these appearances and everything, but, you know, people remember, you were in a lot of films that, when we saw them first run, now kids are watching, you know, E.T., Critters.
Everybody's
they're
grown
fun
up
films.
on me.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess my question is, you know, you don't get tired of, like, telling a story or hearing, you know, you have to find it flattering that, like, oh my God, this person loved it, now their kid loves this one, and
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that just a sign, like, oh my God, nothing could get better right now, this is awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I never get tired of meeting my fans, ever, and hearing your stories and seeing your appreciation. My heart never, ever, ever gets tired of that.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that.
Yeah. Sometimes you just feel lucky, like as an actor you take a role, the script's okay, and then, you know, years later somebody's showing it, and it's like, holy mackerel,
Yeah.
you know, that's just
I had
so
a
weird.
4-year-old and a 90-year-old at my table at the same time for E.T.
That's awesome.
Crazy, isn't
now,
it?
I only mention it because we've had people on this stage with a room full of people that have one film. And we're here celebrating it. And most actors can say, you know, everybody wants one film everybody remembers. And you have dozens of them. And I'm not trying to just, I'm just saying it's cool. Like, it's really cool. You've been around, you've taken enough roles to where it's like, holy shit, you look back on it and you're like, a lot of people remember my stuff. It's gotta be nice. It's
It
fun.
is. It's beautiful, and I'm almost up to my 200th film.
Yeah. That doesn't mention
Speaking about that is like most people who've been in 200 films are basically just character actors, and you've done a lot of character work, but you've also had lead roles and major roles amidst those 200 movies, which is unusual to have such a vast filmography with so many hits.
True.
It really is
Thank
amazing.
you.
It's true.
Thank you.
So one of the movies you were in, this was actually after Critters, was on Popcorn, and it was co-directed by our hero Alan Arsby and one of the actors from Porky's, Mark Harrier. And he did a convention not too long ago, but he, having been an actor in a popular 80s movie turned director, how was he as a director?
Well, Popcorn, I don't know how
It's become
many...
a cult film, yeah, but it had a little bit of a trouble.
Oh my
Yeah, no,
God.
me and my friends were the only ones in the theater on opening night where I grew up. Yeah.
The whole shoot was a mess. We went through several directors. At one time, they shut us down when we were in Jamaica shooting in this really awful theater where all the homeless stayed and peed. And they shut us down because they ran out of money. And then they found the money, and then somebody else came in. I mean, it was a challenge to get the... And you know, you remember I'm in this full body cast, right? So I walked in the day we were doing that scene, and I said, I'd like to look at the body cast. And they went, oh no, we're gonna just we're gonna wrap you in. I said, what? Yeah, we're just gonna wrap you for the day. I went, how do I go to the bathroom? Oh. I said, no guys, you have to have something I can get in and out of. So it was little moments like that that became very challenging. But the end product is awesome, isn't it? I mean, you never know what you're going to go through. What we went through on The Hills Have Eyes, all the actors stayed in one Winnebago. All of us stayed in one Winnebago. And the toilet broke. And it was in the desert, where it was really hot during the day and really cold at night. I spent most of the shoot in my car. Living in my car. Did I answer your question? Okay. I know, my mind...
Nah, we had Jill Scholl in here the last show.
But she probably had a lot more stories and remembers a lot more.
She wasn't in over 200 movies, though. I mean, and one of the interesting things about your career too is, well, in between working on major movies, you did a lot of TV, and you would sort of seamlessly back and forth be working between TV and being in features. Was that a challenge?
Still do.
Schedule-wise, is that challenging?
Well, no, because you can only shoot one at a time.
It's true. Yeah, you did everything.
You know, and it's
Soap operas, every
Kinds of TV, yeah.
it used to be that if you did films, oh my God, you can do TV.
Yeah, it's
But
true. Another
as-
people made
yeah.
a career just in TV and didn't do film.
But as I was moving into my 30s, that started to fall away. And I was one of the first people that helped it because I thought that was stupid. Why can't you go do a film and do awesome parts on TV too? So I did. And that was at the time in the 80s when all the movies of the week were so prolific. And so it was kind of okay because it was still a movie.
Yeah, well, they were.
It was a movie for television.
We have made-for-TV movies Sunday morning here every show. I collect them on film, 16 film. So we have one every
Wow.
Sunday. We have a great one Sunday morning, but check your schedule for that. But they were so popular in the 70s and the 80s
Yeah.
that, I mean,
Especially the 80s. Big.
they got huge ratings for.
I made quite a good living off of doing movies of the week.
Yeah, made for TV.
And it was all
And every
the time.
network, so there were 3 major
Yeah.
networks, always having at least 6 of these a week. There were the Tuesday movies, the Thursday movies, sometimes the Friday movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of other.
And it was all during the time where damsels were in distress, right?
That's true.
Battered wives, you know, prostitute mothers. I did them all. I did them all.
Yeah, Sunday's movie, Robert Mitchum breaks out of prisons and kills people with a great cast. All his kids are Eric Stoltz. Everyone who went on to be an actor is when they were kids.
Kind of like the
Watching,
Breakfast
yeah. So now, out of all the characters you've played, you've had features, TV. Does some of the characters stand out? Do you have like a favorite character? Like, God, I just love this character. Like, I know you've had similar ones, but does one stand out to where it's like, oh my God, I just love this character. Wish I could do it again.
Well, I love Donna Trenton and Cujo, but I don't wish I could do it again. I don't know. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question.
Well, thank you.
Isn't that
You know, I
weird
do
that
try to write
nobody's ever
down some
asked
good
me?
questions.
I'm trying to think over 40 years.
Well, yeah, but every once in a while something just sticks in your head like, holy mackerel, I had a great
No.
time with this one and wish we could do it again.
You know, I have to honestly say,
You can't ask that question to everybody either.
I would not want to go back and ever do a character again. I hate to go back and do a scene again. You know, it's like been there, done that. But I did a short film, which you probably haven't seen because it's still on the film festival circuit, where the guys from Benjamin Button came in and aged me to 80 years old. And it's this beautiful story about this woman who's just lost her husband, and she's on an airplane for the first time. And she's going back to live with her daughter because they're making her move out of her home. And I was shooting something else, and I said, oh, guys, I just don't have time. And my daughter read it, and she said, Mom, you have to do this. This was written for you. And so then I read, once I read it, and then the character gets inside you, and then you have to do it. And it really is one of the sweetest things I've ever done. So that's where I'm going right now. I may go somewhere else.
There's no
tomorrow.
wrong answer to this question, but I actually wrote it down. Look, I have it there.
Yeah, I see.
So,
for those of you who haven't seen Red Christmas, go see it on Netflix. We did it in Australia. If you like horror, you're going to love it. Thank you.
And you can add a new movie to your Christmas horror pile. I added it this year. And yeah, no, it's a very cool flick. Very, very cool flick.
And remember, when you see it, we shot it with 3 lights. 3 lights. The guy's amazing, the cinematographer.
It looks it's a very good one.
Dude, you got something else, Art? Or
My last question was going to be about Red Christmas.
Well, so you
He's
could
gonna
say,
win.
right?
There you go. But no, Red Christmas is, there's this tradition of Christmas-themed horror movies, one of which is, of course, Joe Dante's Gremlins, but there's tons of them, and Red Christmas is the latest edition, and it's great, and the stars right here.
Yeah. We'd like to open it up to you guys.
Yeah.
We can, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'm a big fan of the show Criminal Minds, and you were an episode of Criminal Minds.
I was.
How was it to work with that great cast on that episode that you did?
Just awesome.
They seem
They're-
like a real team and good friends.
Yeah, and just truly nice guys.
And,
Just really, really nice guys. And for those of you who've seen Supernatural,
Oh, that episode made me laugh out loud.
oh my God, so much fun.
I-
And the 2 boys are just yummy. Sweet.
And believe it or not, that was her character on that episode.
I'm this older woman who comes on. Have a great line. He says, "Your hand's still on my knee." I said, "Well, I could move it up a little."
That was a very funny episode, and that show had some very funny episodes. Hey, go ahead.
You said you had your own struggles with Josh and Cujo. I was thinking about if it's as hot as it looks in the film.
No, we were freezing.
Oh, really? Interesting. Because you asked how did they handle the child?
Well, finally, I got him to put a heater in the front of the car. They rigged one. Because I looked over at Danny at one point, and we're waiting to do the scene. He's going. It was really cold, and then they spray us down, with water and glycerin. And so, yeah, it was in Northern California in late November, and it gets cold and rainy. Yeah.
Was that their solution to make it safer for you guys rather than shooting in St. Texas shooting somewhere? They thought that would be less.
Quite honestly, they probably didn't think that through.
I was going to say, but you're looking at the
Yeah.
producer. You just said it's cheap to shoot here. We're doing it.
The rule for a female actress is if it's 90, you're in a fur coat. If it's 30, you're in a bikini.
Isn't that
They
true?
don't ever think about the actor.
Isn't that 100% true?
So true.
Yeah, they're like, we'll make the water warm, but by the time we shoot my scene, it'll be cold. Yeah, just jump in. Go ahead.
What was the one movie that you were glad when you were done with?
Oh, a lot of them, honey. Oh, well, I was really glad to be finished with Cujo. Seriously, Chris and I would go out to dinner and I would fall asleep on the table. That's how tired I
It
was.
was very demanding.
Yeah, because, when you're working with a kid and a dog, when they work, that's what gets printed. So you have to be on all the time. All the time. And almost every scene in there it's either hysterical or it's really high drama, which means even if it's contained, your energy has to be up here. So I was pretty happy when that one came to an end.
Go ahead, in the back. Yeah, you. The guy who can't look me in the eyes.
I can reach. I'm a huge Peter Jackson, Michael J. Fox, and Jeffrey Combs fan, massive. Frightener's an amazing flick. Any stories or insights you can give me from that movie, that shoot?
Oh my
Frighteners?
gosh,
Sorry.
he got an hour
Frighteners, I'm sorry.
from the Frighteners.
Yeah, my fault.
Well, interestingly enough, the Frighteners was when Michael was just getting sick. So he spent a lot of time going back and forth to the States to see his medical people. And I literally had one scene with him. That's it. And he wasn't able to socialize much. So, but Jeffrey, where his head went to get that character is unbelievable to me. That's amazing work that he does. And Peter Jackson is the kindest, sweetest, he's like a hobbit. He is. And when we would shoot that, it was in wintertime down there, he would come in shorts, flip-flops, and a down jacket with this big old burly beard, and he hadn't lost his weight yet. He looked like a hobbit. And he was just so full of love, but such a genius. And a lot of you probably don't know that during the Frighteners, I lost Christopher, my husband of 18 years, that did Cujo and the Howling with me. And he had a heart attack, so I flew back. They flew me back, and then he was fine. I came back to finish it. 4 days later, a massive clot hit him, and he died. They flew me back. I did all his service, picked up my baby and my nanny, and flew back to finish the movie. And so I went up at the end. Sorry, every time I tell this story, I get really moved by the love. And I went back to settle up with the accountant because they had paid for 4 business class flights. And she said, no, Peter told me to tell you this was his gift to you. He's going to absorb all of that, because literally it would have been my whole salary, probably.
Oh yeah, for the distance and the
Yeah. So he and Fran are both just really beautiful people.
I had met Peter Jackson in the 90s after he did his first couple of gore films and right when he did The Feebles, which, if you've ever seen that, is one of my favorite films. And I met him in L.A., just happened to be walking with me and my buddy Chris were in L.A., and he goes, man, that looks like Peter Jackson, only fat. And I was like, I don't know, we're 2 fat guys, let's go see if it is. So we walked up and we were like, honest to God, true story, we walked up and we were like, Peter, and he looks at us and, has that accent. Man, we wound up going to eat. He hung around our room all night. We actually said, how long are you going to be here? We were at an old Fangoria show. And he's like, why? I'm like, well, we have to go buy some shit and have you sign it. I have it all.
That's Peter.
That's Peter Jackson. And then I met him another time and told him about that time. And he looked at me and he said, if I had to go back and do nothing but make gore films and horror comedies, I'd be happy with it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I met him twice in my life, but the first time he was like, oh my God, I remember that. Because he was just sitting there like a lost puppy in LA, and we had him in our room, and we're like, hey, you want to smoke this fatty? And he's like, well, I probably shouldn't. And we're like, we're not telling anybody. So I was feeding him drinks and everything. I always tell you guys way too much shit.
OMG, yeah.
So,
don't anybody post that.
Well, you can. I didn't say if he inhaled. I mean, he was like every president we have. He didn't inhale. So, but it was so funny because it's a true story that we ran into him in LA. But he was very young then. He's much older now and has a family. So, But I thought it was cool. I run into a lot of people in my life. So. What did I just
runs a great set, down to the best boy. If you have a problem, at lunch, they get together, they discuss it, they address it. That's the kind of show he runs. And I know when Fran and when I first gotten down there, and we were going through the wardrobe with the wardrobe mistress, and we got to the part where, she turns into the killer and everything again. And Fran said, well, then we have to age her. And I went, oh no, I think when she starts killing everybody again, she gets younger. She gets back to who she really is. She gets back to what makes her excited. And Fran took one look at me and she went, brilliant. I love it. And if I had ideas, there was one scene, I think it was, it was that scene where I go, I'm coming, and we couldn't quite find it. And Peter said, no, we got it. And they've broken the set and they're moving everything, and I went, oh my God, Peter, I've got it. I know what she needs to do. I've got it. He took one look at me and went, bring everything back, mates, right? If there was just no questioning, if I thought I had something, he was going to trust me. And I got to tell you guys, all the major directors do that. Every major director, E.T. on the dinner table scene, I wasn't supposed to get up and leave, right? But Stephen would give the kids lines and not tell other people that they were coming. And here comes this line, he's in Mexico with Sally. And I took such a hit as Mary, and I thought, oh, I don't want the kids to see me cry. So I got up and left. He comes over to me and says, Dee, why did you do that? What happened? And I explained to him what happened. He went, oh, okay. And then he tells everybody to build a set over here. You got 30 minutes to build a kitchen set with running water in it. So he could take me to the sink and bring me back into that big close-up where I say he hates Mexico. All that, just because I got up and left. But all the great directors do that. They see a moment, they accept the moment, they expand the moment, and then everybody comes together and plays together, right? And then you have a lot of producer writers on TV now that think everything that they do is blessed and sacrosanct, and so there's no room to play, and it's really not as much fun for an actor, or for anybody, I think. The directors are kind of yes men on TV anymore, unless they've really got a reputation.
Somebody else have something.
Over here.
So your performance for me at Red Christmas was actually one of the best emotional performances I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you. Have you seen Cujo?
But I was just curious where you get the inspiration for such an emotional character like that.
I was so fortunate to study with a man named Charles Conrad, who's my acting mentor. And the whole process that I do is not study. It is a really learned acting technique, but you get your energy so high that you hardly can handle it. And then you just become the character. When you get your energy that high, you surpass your mental mind. So you don't go into, oh, does this work, or is this the right choice? Or you're just in that moment.
The actor
of what
adrenaline rush.
Yeah, which is why I get so exhausted working, because whether I'm just doing a sweet little scene or a really highly hysterical scene, my energy's at the same level. And then you throw all your energy to the person you're working with, or the scene, or the animal, or the monster, right? And my goal is to always not know, just to go where that moment in her would take her. And there's a very intellectual story that goes on in Red Christmas, and a lot of social commentary. And I didn't want that to come out. I would have done anything for my family not to know that, and at the same time, I have to be truthfully acknowledging that to myself. And I think that's what drove most of that movie, is me, again, trying to protect my family, but interestingly enough, not only from him, but from the past that I'm ashamed of. I hope I answered your question. Okay.
Well, anyway, we'll start to wrap it up, but somebody else, Ryan, anything?
There's so many great movies in your area. Your favorite or your least favorite right now?
That I've done. Oh, you guys, 40 years is a lot to remember. I think my favorite horror would probably have to be Cujo, even though it isn't your typical horror film.
Yeah, it's a horror film.
I can't even remember the names of the ones I don't like. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, no, you talk to actors on this stage and they're like, paycheck movies. That's what they say.
But, well, and, you know, you guys, I got a really scathing...
Which is nice because some people remember the most dreadful experience and just blurt it out and stuff like that comes up here. So that's nice.
Well, I would have that, but you said horror film.
Oh.
So, you have to... I got a really scathing critical review one time from this guy in Texas. He said, why the hell would Dee Wallace ever do a movie like this? What was the name of it? That could be your answer.
Block that one from memory.
Anyway, and I wrote him back and I said, because my grandmother's really ill and I needed to hire a live-in helper for her. And that's why I did this movie. You have to remember that actors are people too. And we're driven by things other than just selfishly what's going to advance me in my career. He actually wrote me an apology. Didn't publish it, but he wrote me back one.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't look like anyone who said, I'm doing this just to advance my career. So that's a plus. To me, that's very cool. I mean, you could have, but don't admit it. Because I don't see that in you. One more. Go ahead, man. Make it a good one.
Okay. Well, I was 9 when E.T. came out, so...
Thank you. That's all right, honey. Like I said, everybody's grown up on me.
You look pretty much the same as what I remember.
Exactly.
Turn around, I'll kiss it down. Thank you, thank you.
And of course, like as we talked about, you've had such a steadily successful career. Like you've been in a lot of movies. But E.T., from what I remember, especially as a 9-year-old being little, that was this colossal iconic cultural hit. Did you find this surreal, or did you find it overwhelming, or like, what was that like to find to be caught up in that kind of tornado, tsunami, and this kind of...
You know, the question I always got after E.T. came out was, how has this film changed you? And my answer was always, it didn't change me. It changed my career, but it didn't change me. Because I was taught, you never leave the Kansas. You never leave the Kansas. So, it was a bit overwhelming. But I was so joyful about what the movie was doing for everyone's hearts that I was just so joyful about it and so proud to be a part of that it was easy to undertake all the things that they were asking us to go to and all the interviews and you know, it was like my opportunity to get out and share the love about a movie that really was changing people's lives. I mean, I have stories from moms of autistic children who had never spoken a word in their life, and they saw that movie and started saying everything that E.T. said. I mean, that's miraculous. And there's something about that film that just transcends limitations for people. Good question, thank you.
It was a good question. Art, shall we wrap it up?
That's a great question. But I mean, Dee Wallace is at her table. And
you know what?
So
sometimes we hate to keep people here more than an hour, and I'd like to thank Dee for being so open and honest with everybody. She does invite you to go back and talk to her, ask any question you want. She's obviously open and honest.
Love you guys.
And I know I joke with you guys, but you always make me look good. Thanks, guys. So, like I say, come on back in half an hour. We got an old Boris Karloff's thriller episode and our double feature for the night, and Dee's here all weekend. So go buy a, contribute to her retirement fund and buy a photo.
Not there yet, dude.
No, I just have to give you a hard time.